Beyond Reason Radio.
U.S. virus deaths may top 80,000 despite confinement. That's a new study that was posted today by the AFP. COVID-19 could lead to more than 80,000 deaths in the U.S. and overwhelm hospital capacity nationally as soon as early April, even if social distancing measures are respected. New research showed today U.S. death toll for the pandemic has already soared past 1,000. Forecasters at the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington School of Medicine analyzed the latest COVID-19 data at a local, national, and international level. These include hospitalization and mortality rates, as well as patient data in terms of age, gender, and pre-existing health problems. So that looks bad when you hear 80,000 deaths. That's not a good thing, but it's a lot less than the 2 million deaths that some were predicting in the beginning, or they were saying maybe 500,000 was the best case scenario. So 80,000 down from 500,000 or even 2 million. It kind of depends how you look at this, but it's kind of interesting. And the reason why I point that out is there's a lot that we still don't know. By the way, you have to look at the other aspect of all this, and that's the economic aspect. Americans displaced, according to CNBC, displaced by the coronavirus crisis, filed unemployment claims in record numbers last week, with the Labor Department reporting Thursday a surge to 3.28 million. That number shatters the Great Recession peak of 665,000 in March 2009. The reason why I bring that up, and this is something I'm going to get into more detail on later in the show, but the main reason why I brought that up is because there does have to be a consideration on the economic impacts of all these shutdowns. There's a lot of people that don't want to seem to take that into consideration, that think we'll just all be fine if we shut down for months. And I tell you, over 3 million people filed for unemployment. There's probably a lot more people than that are unemployed who haven't filed for unemployment.
They're saying that we'll have more figures, obviously, after this has been going on for about a month or so.
Exactly.
And no one expects it to be less. It's going to be more.
Yeah. So these are things that Trump has to think about, and he's getting blasted for merely having the conversation. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We're on until 8 p.m. tonight right here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. But as you know, you can catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. We're on Facebook Live as well. I got it working tonight. That's good. It just went back to the old format. Didn't realize that was an option. The new format doesn't work, but the old one works fine. You know, if it ain't broke, why fix it, as the old saying goes. But they do that all the time on these sites. So you can catch me on Facebook Live. You can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. The one thing that I want to start with today in just a moment, I want to talk about leadership. What does true leadership look like in a crisis like this? Because I'm hearing different things from people reacting to what is true leadership. And I think a lot of people are frankly wrong about it. You know, what do I know? I'm just a nobody behind the microphone, but I'm going to give my thoughts because, you know, I can. It's my show. But before we get to that, Tom Benson is here. And how are you, Tom?
Well, doing so far, so good. You know, hunkering down at home. Looking forward to getting outside when I have to take the garbage out, you know, and get some fresh air.
Yeah, it's about all you can do, apparently.
That is it, yeah.
So Orange County and Osceola County have stay-at-home orders that start tonight. Seminole County has not done it yet, where I live. And they're not going to do it, according to what they've said, because cases are so low. But it's kind of a ghost town here at the station because they're encouraging as many people as possible to work from home.
Well, did you see the tumbleweeds going through the hallway before?
I did,
yes.
You know. I was expecting somebody else to come in and we would duel afterwards. But I can't really do my part of the job from home At least I don't have the equipment available to do that as the producer of the morning show and stuff.
You're known as the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, I'm like into the trenches there, Tom. No, it's okay. I think it's all right. As long as there's enough social distancing and as few people here as possible, I think it will be okay. So, leadership. What got me thinking about this? I posted something, I post promotions on my social media, and I have a feeling that people are thinking, oh, he's going to talk about why Trump's a great leader. And if you just automatically think that, you have never listened to this show. I'm not someone who's afraid to criticize Trump when he does something wrong. In fact, a couple shows ago, I did criticize Trump because he didn't take the right actions initially. I mean, the actions were okay, but he said things probably he shouldn't have said. But I want to get beyond...
Really? Our president do that?
I know, exactly. But I want to get beyond I want to get beyond Trump for a moment. I just want to talk about leadership. And what got me thinking about this was something I heard on Meet the Press on Sunday. I played it in the last show, didn't really get a good chance to talk about it because we had so many other things going on in the last show. So I'm going to play it again here. It's from historian Doris Kearns Goodwin. Her most famous book is Team of Rivals, which is about the Lincoln presidency. She has a new book out called Leadership in Turbulent Times. And she was on Meet the Press. She was asked about this. And, of course, she used the opportunity to basically bash Trump. And then she talked about FDR and how FDR showed true leadership. And I couldn't really believe what she said, but there are a lot of historians who believe this for some reason. Here's what she said.
I think the most important thing in these kind of times is you have to trust the word of the president and you have to believe in the actions that they're taking. There was early bungling in response to the Depression by the Hoover administration. They relied on voluntary action, on state and local action. They didn't believe the federal government should be in charge of everything. And so his words lost their credibility. He said prosperity will never be helped by raiding the public treasury. FDR comes in, changes the situation entirely. His inaugural address not only says we shouldn't worry about fear itself, it says this is preeminently a time to tell the truth. Only a foolish optimist would not admit the dire circumstance. But then he says, I am prepared for action and action now. And he says, if Congress doesn't give me what I want, I need broad executive power. We are at a war. You voted for me, and I take this responsibility. So, and then things started happening. The banking crisis got help. The 100 days comes in. So why that Defense Production Act is not being used right now, as others have said, so that we can mobilize a coordinated response to this, why the Army's not being mobilized now. The bungling's already happened. We have to get to that next stage of systematic action.
So there's something that she said quite a few times in that. Action. She said the word action. And this is what I hear a lot from pundits about what leadership looks like. We just need action. Action now. Let's just do something. And, she talked about FDR there. And FDR was really a great leader because he was a man of action. He didn't even care about the Constitution. If Congress won't do it, give me broad executive power and I'll just do it myself because we need action. I remember this in 2008, in 2009 when Obama came in. Well, who cares what the action is? We just need something done now, action. So we spent $1 trillion stimulus bill that really didn't help that much. And then when you talk about FDR, the Great Depression lasted probably longer because of the works of FDR, because he was a man of action and a man of what he called experimentation. So he did all this experimentation, and a lot of that experimentation made the economic situation even worse. And the point I'm trying to make here is merely just doing something doesn't make you a great leader. In fact, sometimes not doing something could make you even a better leader. FDR, I think, was a horrible leader during the Great Depression. Some of his New Deal stuff that he did ended up getting overturned later by the Supreme Court as unconstitutional, and they had to get rid of some of the restrictions because it got in the way of the war effort when World War II started. But one thing that FDR even did is during the war effort, he did some things immediately. But think about this for a second. We were attacked on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. When did we invade France? Nazi-controlled France. 1944.
Yeah, June 6th.
June 6th, 1944. We recently celebrated the 75th anniversary of that.
That's right.
Last year. June 6th, 1944. 3 years later. So do you criticize FDR for not invading France immediately and taking out the Nazis immediately? We act like it's been just weeks that a lot of this has started, and they're already blasting Trump for not true leadership, when sometimes you have to get things right to make sure you don't screw things up and get in the way of progress. I just get nervous when I hear people say that true leadership is just action. Sometimes the action can be worse. You know, Governor Ron DeSantis here in Florida is getting a lot of criticism because he hasn't done a statewide order to shut things down. And people are saying this is not true leadership. It could be in the long run that that's even better leadership because it prevented the whole economy of the state from completely collapsing. Plus, what about freedoms and rights for people that aren't sick, where there are not hot spots? And he's made really good points on this front that right now it doesn't seem necessary to do this, and he's getting blasted for it. But I think it shows true leadership, because sometimes true leadership isn't just action. Sometimes true leadership is showing restraint. I know that's something a lot of people don't want to mention, but sometimes true leadership is showing restraint. I'm going to give more examples of this from our history, but I do want to play Governor Cuomo of New York. Andrew Cuomo. A lot of people are floating him as a possible presidential candidate because Joe Biden is just screwing this up so badly. And they think maybe at the convention somehow they can draft him and make him the Democrat nominee. But a lot of people are praising his leadership. He's so great. Now, he has done some good things, and he has decent presentation skills. But do you remember when he was blasting Trump and the federal government for not having enough ventilators? In fact, here's what he said just a few days ago.
I look at actions, not words. They're doing the supplies. Here's my question. Where are they? Where are the ventilators? Where are the gowns? Where's the PPEs? Where are the masks? Where are they? Where are they if they're doing it? And by the way, Peter Navarro, well, we want to work with companies. Fine, work with companies. What the Defense Procurement Act was about, the country needed materials to go to war. They didn't, when we went to war, we didn't say, any company out there want to build a battleship? Who wants to build a battleship? Maybe a couple of you guys could get together and build a battleship. Maybe a couple of you guys could get together and build us some missiles. Maybe you think. Anybody want to build a plane? You know, we're going to need planes. They're sending planes at us and they're dropping bombs. Anybody want to do that? That's not how you did it. The president said it's a war. It is a war. Well, then act like it's a war. And it's not anti-business. Nobody's talking about change the governmental philosophy. By the way, the businesses would welcome it. I speak to the businesses. You know what they say? I'll do it, but I need startup capital.
And there was another thing that he said recently where he said they want to send me 3,000 ventilators and I need 30,000 ventilators. What is the federal government doing? And I'm just thinking, what is all this complaining doing? Just whining about not having enough doesn't really solve anything. And he's acting like it's Trump's fault. And I'm like, okay, so he puts forward the Defense Production Act. Even later in that cut, he admits that it takes time to get the supply chains working. But then he complains that it's not available immediately. That doesn't make sense. This is true leadership. Oh, the ventilators aren't available now. Oh, but it takes supply chains time to work. Well, which one is it? Of course they're not available now. It takes time to get the supply chains going. Why is just whining about Trump and the federal government make you a true leader? But what's even more amazing about this is yesterday he was praising Trump, said exactly the opposite of what he said before. Here it is.
The president and his team, I think, are using the DPA well, because it's basically it's a leverage tool when you're dealing with private companies, right? We need your help. We can demand your help, or you could agree to help, and we need you to step up and increase production. Even with that, there's a ramp-up time for a company to put together the supply chain, put together the workforce, and get these things up and running. So Ford, you hear, is going to help. General Motors is going to help.
Isn't that, I mean, Tom mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that almost the opposite of what he said in the cut we played before?
He must have met with some of his advisors overnight to change his tune.
This is true leadership, apparently, from what I'm hearing. Just a quote here before we go to the break. This is from Fortune magazine in 1942. It just shows you how much trouble they had with supply chains even back then. From one great crisis, we have lunged into another. The 1941 crisis of production and materials has been succeeded by the 1942 crisis of shipping, and the most urgent problem facing the nation today is to move the war goods that are now being produced faster than ships can be built to transport them. There was a lot of problems even in World War II. It's only been a couple of weeks, and things are ramping up. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
So I posted this on my social media yesterday. Got quite a response. There's just one simple question. You all realize a working economy is how you get to eat, right? That's it. And my social media exploded.
Who exploded first, supporters or detractors?
Actually, mostly supporters, but there were some detractors, and I'll get into that in a moment because it's pretty interesting. I do want to get back, though, real quick to the talk of leadership, because I want to give you examples of bad leadership and good leadership. To me, an example of bad leadership in American history, and I'm sure you would agree with this, Tom Benson, Lyndon Johnson, LBJ. I'm reading a book right now by H.R. McMaster, who was in the Trump administration recently, but it's called Dereliction of Duty, all about the Vietnam War.
His micromanagement of the war. Micromanagement you would not believe.
Right. You know, you talk about the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which really got things ramping up, where they thought they were attacked by North Vietnamese. The ships thought they were attacking the Gulf of Tonkin by the North Vietnamese, and that started up a lot of ramping up of the war. There were some people, even at the time, who said, wait, we need more intelligence before we do anything, because we're not even sure that this happened yet. There was conflicting reports that we were actually attacked by the North Vietnamese in this time. But LBJ and other people in the administration, what did they want? Oh, that word again, action. Tom Benson almost said it.
Yeah.
Action. We got to do something. But, of course, when they did something, they didn't do enough because it was all micromanaged from Washington, and they wanted to do a gradual pressure campaign against the North Vietnamese instead of really fighting them and really beating them initially, because they were trying to walk this fine line. But it's amazing how LBJ was definitely a man of action, but just because you're a man of action doesn't mean you're a good leader. But then you look at who I think is probably the best leader in the history of the United States, George Washington. The great example of this is what happened in March 1783. This was after basically we won the war against the British. But a lot of the soldiers at the time were really unhappy with the Continental Congress because they weren't getting paid. They didn't get their money. They were really mad. So there was a cabal of soldiers and officers, including General Horatio Gates. By the way, that general was second in line to George Washington, and there were times where people wanted him to be the top general instead of Washington. So imagine if that actually happened, just so you know. But even he was saying what needs to happen is if they don't get paid immediately by the Continental Congress, these soldiers should walk on, Philadelphia at the time and force their pay or basically take over the government, is what they were saying. And George Washington comes in, and they wanted Washington to take the lead and basically become a king at this point. Oh, but action, see? There's the word again, action. We need to do something. This is a crisis. And George Washington enters when they were discussing this, and he says, "Let me entreat you, gentlemen, on your part, not to take any measures, which viewed in the calm light of reason will lessen the dignity and sully the glory you have hitherto maintained. Let me request you to rely on the plighted faith of your country and place a full confidence in the purity of the intentions of Congress." And then, of course, the famous thing that happened next, he paused, took out his spectacles, which he would never do in front of the soldiers or the officers before because he didn't want to show any sign of weakness. But he did that. And he said, "Gentlemen, you must pardon me. I have grown old in the service of my country and now find that I am growing blind." And that really got a lot of people emotional. They really saw how much he had sacrificed for his country. A man who could have become king. He could have been a man of action, could have marched to the Continental Congress, arrested them all, taken over the country, and declared himself dictator, and paid all the officers. But he showed true leadership because he showed true restraint. I'm just saying, I notice a lot of people out there, even historians, saying, well, true leadership in a time of crisis like this is action. Doesn't matter what it is. Action, action. Do something now. That is not what true leadership always is. We still have a constitution. We still have a free economy. And you don't want to do something that could be even worse. So Trump's getting blasted for some things he said recently, which I think, honestly, he's just been pretty reasonable on all this. You have to balance the economic impacts with the impacts of the virus itself. This is not an unreasonable thing to at least discuss, but he's getting blasted for it. We'll talk about that next. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. Safe space for conservative thought, not for political correctness. Yaffee is back right now.
So it always amazes me how many people in this country, even though they benefit from it, don't understand basic economics. It really does amaze me that they think that everything we have that we take for granted is just always going to be there, provided for us somehow. They don't really care how it gets there. They don't understand how it's there. It just is there, and if it's not, well, the government will just give it to us. And it amazes me how much people take what we have for granted as, oh, it's guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. There's a reason why it exists. They should read the pamphlet I Pencil. Have you ever read that, I Pencil?
No.
There's a pamphlet that went out a long, long time ago where it talks about what it takes to produce a pencil and all the different supply chains involved and all the different manufacturers involved and all the different sellers involved and how it works because of a free market. And it works much better in a free market than it would in just complete government control. But people don't seem to understand this. So the example is I posted on my social media. By the way, if you're wondering who this is, I'm Michael Yaffee. This is Beyond Reason Radio. We're on until 8 p.m. tonight. You know this. Make sure to catch the podcast as well. I just posted this on my Facebook page, and you can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page or send me a friend request. I'll accept it. I said, you all realize a working economy is how you get to eat, right? And one person said, I don't think a lot of people understand that. Sounds like, yeah, I think he's right. But then, of course, my liberal friend pointed out, and he said, you mean we can't have both? Something reasonable while we get through this? Now, did I say we couldn't have anything reasonable? Was that? No, I didn't say that. But then he posted this meme, and I'm seeing this a lot of different places. My mother is not expendable. Your mother is not expendable. We will not put a dollar figure on human life. We can have a public health strategy that is consistent with an economic one. No one should be talking about social Darwinism for the sake of the stock market. So when you bring stuff like this up, that we need a working economy, they say, basically they do this demagoguery. You don't care about a human life. You're putting a dollar figure on a human life. So my response would be, if this is your argument, you should be for the banning of all cars. You should be for the banning of all cars. Because, that would hurt the economy. That would hurt our lives. There are benefits to having cars. Ambulances drive. You're putting a dollar figure on human life. I'm sorry. It kills a lot of people every year. Are you saying those people that were killed in car accidents are expendable? The reality is you have to think about this stuff when you're talking about a country. You have to think about the pros and cons of things. And what they don't realize is that if the economy completely collapses, then a lot of people will be expendable because they won't have jobs, which means they won't be able to afford the food. He said, is there anybody who thinks that a total shutdown, which we do not have, will produce food? And he's basically saying, well, the grocery stores are still open and other things are still open. Yeah, but you can't go to the grocery store if you don't get paid. You can't buy the goods at the grocery store if you don't get paid. Not only that, but if the mortgages aren't paid, there's a banking crisis because the banks are the ones who finance the mortgages. So then there's a banking crisis, which could turn into a financial crisis, which could collapse the economy even more, which means the Fed would have to print more money, which could lead to massive inflation. And they have to do this through debt, but nobody wants to buy the debt anymore. So if nobody's buying the debt, you either have massive inflation and you have default, which sinks the economy even more. Then the economy just stops working. And if the economy stops working, it stops working in the grocery stores as well. And then you don't eat. That's how an economy works. Am I wrong here, Tom Benson?
Sounds logical to me, yes.
I know. Maybe I'm just being too logical. That's the problem. Maybe that's a problem. I'm just being too logical. But somebody else said, well, you can't eat if you die. That was somebody's brilliant response. You know what I said? If you don't eat, you do die.
That's right.
This is the whole point. They're not thinking about the bigger picture here. I'm not saying we should just open everything up today and we shouldn't take any social distancing measures and we shouldn't do anything. I'm merely saying that we just need to have the conversation that you can't shut down an economy as much as we have for months on end without major ramifications, not just for the stock market. Every time you bring this up, you just care about the stock market. The economy is not just the stock market. The economy is you. It's me. It's our daily lives. It's how a country functions. It's how we produce and buy food, clothing, shelter, healthcare. All that stuff. It's not just there. It doesn't just exist because it's there. It had to be produced through a free market over time. And all that's collapsing right now. And anytime you merely have this conversation, they say, you want your grandmother to die. Oh, well, my grandmother is already dead, unfortunately. But I don't want my mom or my parents to die. I don't want anyone to die. But we're talking about the destruction of the country where a lot more people could die and your freedom could be taken away. What was it? Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death. Think about that. But to the comedians out there, they don't want to think about this. And they don't have to because they're going to be fine. They're getting paid. I know people right now that have been laid off who are not getting paid. What are they going to do? The government's going to take care of them. For months on end, you expect the government to take care of you? Good luck with that. But here's, let's see, what's the first one?
We have here Mr. Noah.
Yeah, Trevor Noah, The Daily Show, which, by the way, it's very interesting watching these guys do these shows from their house So they don't have the audience laughing at their jokes, and you realize how bad their jokes are when they don't have the people laughing to kind of make it seem better.
There's nobody holding up the applause sign.
Exactly. But it just shows you how difficult radio is, because we don't have that audience. We have to just kind of... I told my pastor that recently, by the way. I was like, because he did an online sermon. I said, now you know what it's like to be on radio where you never have an audience.
Yeah.
He said it's so much harder, because we have an audience, but you don't get the immediate response from them.
Right.
So, but here's Trevor Noah on a recent episode of The Daily Show, of course, blasting Trump for merely bringing up that we have to start thinking about opening up the economy again. Here it is.
While more and more countries around the world are shutting down to stop coronavirus from spreading, Donald Jameson Trump is preparing for a grand opening, which makes sense. Easter is about resurrection after all. Happy Easter, everyone. He is risen. He meaning coronavirus.
Get it? Because coronavirus is risen, I guess. It's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
So people are shutting down. I guess I shouldn't be surprised by this, because this is how they approach all of our rights. We see this with the Second Amendment. One crazy guy shoots up some people, which nobody wants to see. Nobody wants to see someone killed in a mass shooting. But their immediate response is shut it all down, bring in all guns, stop it.
Do something.
Yeah. And then when you say, no, maybe we shouldn't give up our rights because this happened, they say, well, you don't care about the death of children. This is their shallow thinking. Another person who did this, of course, was Jimmy Kimmel, who I swear he wants to be a political commentator. He really doesn't want to be a late show host. I think he actually wants to be a political commentator. But here's what he said about it.
Thickest-headed politicians have been passing the time by spreading nonsense about the coronavirus. People like Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, who floated the idea that old people are willing to go to an early grave in order to help boost the stock market.
Tucker, no one reached out to me and said, as a senior citizen, are you willing to take a chance on your survival in exchange for keeping the America that all America loves for your children and grandchildren? And if that's the exchange, I'm all in. And that doesn't make me noble or brave or anything like that.
No, it makes you an idiot. I shouldn't say it makes you an idiot. It reveals to us that you are an idiot. Unfortunately, the lieutenant governor isn't alone in this moronathon. The president of the United States also appears to be planting the seeds for a get-back-to-work movement. Trump had a virtual town hall meeting on Fox News today, during which he once again defied the so-called experts who say we're in this for a while.
We're opening up this incredible country because we have to do that. I'd love to have it open by Easter.
By Easter? That's in 2.5 weeks. Even Jesus is like, Jesus, calm down. Let's think this through. We're all going to die so the president can eat Peeps.
We're all going to die so the president can eat Peeps. Do you notice what he did there? For one, I put in the last show, you need to listen to the podcast of the last show, because I played the full comments from the lieutenant governor of Texas. He only played part of it there. But you notice before he played that cut, he said, we want to sacrifice old people to boost the stock market. Now, did you hear the lieutenant governor ever say that?
No, I did not.
He didn't say anything about boosting the stock market.
That's Kimmel's interpretation of what he meant. So he can be a mind reader.
Yeah. That the Republicans only care about the stock market. No, what he said there is he said, I'm willing to risk it to save the country from destruction.
And more specifically, save the country for his grandchildren.
Yeah. So under Jimmy Kimmel's brilliant logic there, he called Lieutenant Governor an idiot. Under his brilliant logic, nobody should have joined the military in World War II. Right? Nobody should have joined the military in World War II, because those people who joined the military in World War II were really, literally willing to sacrifice their lives to prevent the country from destruction, right? Well, you're an idiot if you think that. You're sacrificing your life for somebody else? That's moronic. According to Jimmy Kimmel's logic, that's what he thinks. That all the Republicans care about the stock market, and nobody should be willing to sacrifice their life for the future of the country. Then nobody should ever join the military. Nobody should ever be a police officer. No one should ever be a firefighter. Their logic is shallow. But they say it in funny ways of, oh, Trump just cares about eating peeps and everyone's going to die. Oh, I'm so funny. So, another person who did this was Alec Baldwin. Of course, he did his Trump impression. He was talking to Howard Stern. Remember, these people don't have to worry about their jobs. They're not getting laid off. They can work from home. I don't know how many people are watching this now. It's not nearly as entertaining. But here's what Alec Baldwin said doing his Trump impression here.
Listen, okay, everybody knows that people are going to die, okay? Some people are going to die. That just is accepted, okay? As long as I don't die and you don't die, my fellow Republican contributors, we should get the country back to work.
Oh, because that's all Trump cares about, right? Just him and his Republican contributors. And I notice reporters are putting this out there that the only reason Trump cares about this is he wants his poll numbers to go up. Actually, his poll numbers are higher now than they've ever been. So maybe he just cares about the country and the economy, which I'm going to point out again is how you get to eat. That's where your food comes from. I just want to play Trump here in context. A lot of this was taken from his town hall on Fox News. I want to play a little bit longer of a cut here from Trump, from that town hall, to tell you exactly what he said. And it's not what they're saying he said. Here it is.
You have to make the decision. Look, we lose thousands. I brought some numbers here. We lose thousands and thousands of people a year to the flu. We don't turn the country off. I mean, every year. Now, when I heard the number, we average 37,000 people a year. Can you believe that? And actually, this year we're having a bad flu season. But we lose thousands of people a year to the flu. We never turned the country off. We lose much more than that to automobile accidents. We didn't call up the automobile company to say, stop making cars. We don't want any cars anymore. We have to get back to work. Now, with all of that being said, it's incredible what the American people have done. And honestly, the American people have learned. We've all learned together between the shaking of the hands and the washing of the hands. Well, I used to wash my hands, and I always wash my hands a lot. I never was a big believer in shaking hands. Once I become a politician, you shake hands, and you get a little bit used to it. We've had flus where we lose 36,000. We've lost as many, I guess, as 78,000 people in 1 year. And they came in, and they said to me, sir, we're going to have to close the country. I said, what are you talking about? Well, we have a virus. It's coming in, and I knew that, and I made the early decision with China. So I already closed it off to China, and that was a long time before they came in. But they came in, experts, and they said, we're going to have to close the country. I said, we've never closed the country before. This never happened before. You're saying, I said, are you serious about this? We are going to take this country that's fully employed, where we have 160 million people working, and you're telling me we have to close it, and people are going to go out of business, and they're going to go bankrupt, and they're not going to have jobs? What are we talking about here? Don't forget, this has never been done. We've had flus before. We've had viruses before. So this is something new. And this is why I say we have to. I gave it 2 weeks, and I guess by Monday or Tuesday it's about 2 weeks, and we'll assess at that time, and we'll give it some more time if we need a little more time. But we have to open this country up.
How could he say such a thing? Everything he said was perfectly reasonable there, if you listen to it in context. Trump derangement syndrome, I guess. So, the Senate passed their stimulus package. The House is working on it. We're going to talk about what's in that next. And more. It is definitely, some of it is, anyway, Beyond Reason. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
You know what's Beyond Reason? Yaffee is now on YouTube. Go to YouTube now and just search Beyond Reason Radio. The place where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Beyond Reason Radio continues.
By the way, I just wanted to give you an update on what's going on with coronavirus in the state of Florida. Right now, they're saying that the cases in the state of Florida has jumped to over 2,300, and 5 more deaths are reported. That brings the death toll up to 20 in the state of Florida. So when I talk about this, I'm not saying it's not an issue. I'm just saying we have to have the conversation about the right approach. And I don't think some people are willing to have the conversation because of panic, really. So members of Congress try to have the right approach, including the Senate. They just passed this relief bill. Of course, Lindsey Graham here made a point last night before it was voted on about the unemployment benefits in this bill, which are a little beyond reason. Here's what he said.
Let me tell you why. Under this proposal that they agreed to last night, on unemployment, you would be making $24.07 an hour in South Carolina. There are a lot of jobs in South Carolina that do not pay $24.07. I've been one of the biggest advocates of helping the unemployment insurance system as part of a relief package. The maximum benefit, as Tim said, was $326. My goal was to add some federal dollars to the pot to get you back to what you were making with a cap of $600, which is an income of about $49,000. This bill pays you more not to work than if you were working. Very few people are going to turn down a $24 deal not to work. To work for 15. The problem for employers is that you've been put out of business because of containment policies that I think will continue aggressively for a while. What do you tell an employee if you own a restaurant or bar in Myrtle Beach? Are you going to say, let me put you on the payroll at your salary of $15 an hour? Or are you going to say, go to the unemployment office and sign up for unemployment, get as much as you can. I know you want the money, you need the money, and there'll be a job waiting on you.
Amazing point. That was something I was really worried about, that with some of these unemployment benefits added to this bill, that it would encourage job employers to just lay off employees. By the way, something else in this bill, just so you know, $25 million for House of Representatives salaries and expenses. Millions of dollars for the Endowment for the Arts. Millions of dollars for public broadcasting and NPR. What? How is this a thing? How is this a thing? I don't understand. Okay, let's end the show with something that made Yaffee Laffee. So Joe Biden, he's having a tough time. Which, I mean, that might be an understatement, but he's having a tough go of it with all of this, trying to do his virtual town halls and everything, trying to show he's the true leader, which I don't think anyone's even paying attention to him at this point. But he was on CNN with Jake Tapper, the lead with Jake Tapper, and he got caught doing something he shouldn't have done. Here it is.
I've not talked to any individual. Excuse me.
You know, you're supposed to cough into your elbow. I don't know, sir. I learned that actually covering your White House.
Actually, that's true. But fortunately, I'm alone in my home. But that's okay.
All right.
I agree. You're right.
You should it's kind of old school to do it with your hand. Do it into your elbow. You're supposed to do it.
Oh, come on, Joe. Come on, man. You gotta get this stuff right. He can't catch a break. He can't go. By the way, apparently he only had 2,300 views in his Facebook town hall.
My goodness.
I mean, that'd be good for me, but like someone who's running for president of the United States can only get 2,300 views. Whew. All right, so I appreciate you listening to the show. Remember, Orange and Osceola counties are under shutdown orders unless you were an essential worker. Luckily, me and Tom Benson are essential, so that's good. And there's actually a lot of people who are essential. But just so you know, we are going to have updates every day here on WFLA in the morning, throughout the day on the coronavirus epidemic, keeping you informed. If you miss any of the show, catch the podcast anywhere that podcasts are available. And I will catch you guys next time.